but I appreciate you guys making the time to be with us here on Friday. It's February. How's that first quarter working out for you? Right? All those fun, normal real estate business questions we ask at the beginning of every year. February 7th. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read. I am not necessarily a big book reader. I do enjoy reading great things. This is going to be a little of what we're talking about at the beginning of this mastermind. And if you get an opportunity to read this book, it's a pretty great read. It's called The Four Agreements. And really, it revolves around these four agreements with yourself, right? Which is being impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And I felt this was kind of worthy today for a couple of reasons. We, are experiencing some stress and some division and all sorts of things, and not just in the country, but even within our organization. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but I see opportunity in it to kind of revisit some things. So I hope you're okay. What we're going to talk about today is the ethical way to run your real estate business. This is the CIAS version of the four agreements. And really, number one starts with, I do good work. And the reason this is important there are definitely some experienced agents on here. I know most of you pretty well, which is great. Some of you are newer to real estate. And so this is a great opportunity for you to kind of just maybe get some perspective around some of this, because this is an industry where after you graduate, you're kind of thrown to the wolves to a certain degree, right? So is it safe to assume that when you meet a potential client, because you're a licensed real estate professional, there's an assumption that you do good work? Would you guys agree with that? So, right, it's kind of like going to the doctor. And the difference going to the doctor is you have probably a pretty good idea that that person has gone through schooling, has become licensed. They became a practitioner because they had to at least spend 3 years as a student, right? Before they become a full-time practitioner. And how does that work in real estate? It doesn't necessarily work that way in real estate, right? So what's very common is this conversation around 10,000 hours of intentional practice. And the reason this is the first part of I do good work is we should all agree, right, that if I'm doing good work, I can validate it by experience, practice, all of those things, right? We call this mastery. And sometimes, like the CIAS class, what helped me become a master was the responsibility I had as becoming the instructor. I knew that I had to teach other real estate agents who were spending money to learn great things, that I couldn't be a hypocrite. I should probably practice what I preach. And more importantly, I should probably understand what it is that I'm talking about, right? And believe it or not, that was my own personal journey into becoming an investor myself. I probably would never have become an investor had I not only taken the class, but become the instructor, if that makes sense to y'all, right? But this is interactive. So here's somebody unmute. Maybe a couple of you need to unmute, but what happens if you sell something in real estate that you don't really know anything about? What are some things that could happen to you in your business or you as a person if you're selling something that you don't know really anything about? Who wants to share?
You can get sued, Brandon.
What? No way, Whitney. Like, if you think about the worst thing that can happen to you in real estate, Whitney hit it right on the head, and that is you can get sued. Now, that doesn't mean everybody sues, right? If somebody doesn't typically like something, they share it though with other people, don't they? So you might not necessarily get sued, but there's a high probability people might not talk to you or talk about you respectfully or in a high fashion, or more importantly, maybe you don't get any repeat or referral business. Would you agree with that? And so one of the things that I see day in and day out is sometimes there's this lack of practice There's folks on here that, I'll just pick on Lee because he's been a ghost. He's been a ghost with us for a little bit, but not only does Lee operate and run his business with integrity, he runs a team, he runs a business. And Lee, share with us, like, what's the worst thing? Like, what are the things that drive you crazy that you hear from other clients or other agents when it comes to their understanding of real estate or the practice?
I think it comes down to not putting the client first. There's nothing worse than a client that you've been working with having a horrible experience and
Right.
them sharing that experience with others.
Right.
And it's interesting because I had a termite inspection or a termite situation recently where the client sent the termite company the check, the termite company sent it back, and then went after the client saying, "Oh, we made a mistake," and or no, they never said they made a mistake. They said, "You owe us this money." And I
Mm,
said, "You could have toned it better and said, hey, you know what? We made a mistake. Could you please send us back the money?
right.
In fact, let me knock 25% off of the bill, as an apology." And I let them know, hey, you could have handled that a little bit better.
Right.
And they didn't. So I wrote a check for 25% of that termite work, the tenting. And that client ended up telling everyone that they know that when shit went wrong, Lee stepped up. It wasn't his mistake, but he stepped up and he fixed it for me. That's the guy that you want to work with. That's what builds client loyalty.
Absolutely. Love that. Absolutely. And that's an example of, making sure you're surrounded with the right people, but more importantly, right, you want to do good work. You want, in real estate, that's something I preach all the time, which is you just want a buyer and seller to not regret anything, right? At the end of the day. Value is something we've always talked about in real estate. And, you know, I don't I don't know that we had as much commission compression maybe post NAR. Um, we've always had discount brokerages. We've always had agents that have worked for less. We get all of that. But what we're really trying to talk about is specifically with investors, or anything really, I guess at the end of the day is no matter what someone agrees to pay you, you should always bring more value than that. And as a newer agent, you might not understand fully what that value is. You have a good idea. You've maybe been told you should be charging a certain fee or a certain amount for your compensation. And I'm not going to get into the weeds on that, but it does start with you. And how do you feel about your value as it relates to what you're potentially going to charge somebody? And we should all know as consumers, you're willing to pay more for things if you feel that there's more benefit to you, right? More value to you. On the negative side of this, because this relates to number one as well, providing more value or going that extra effort doesn't mean you should go let your clients do all of their research. It doesn't mean you should let your clients go out and do all the houses with you. That's an example though of at some point that person's going to have to spend money to buy a home. And if you're part of the equation, then they feel like they're doing all of the work. Do you think they feel you have less value and they might question what it is that they're paying you? And the answer should be yes. And I can tell you firsthand, that's how the investor world works. So one of the things we practice is the CIAS proactive model. Instead of your investors running around looking for deals, you should be in front of them finding the deals. You should be running the numbers. You should be front and center with understanding your market better than anyone else. You should complement what it is that your investors are trying to do, right? If you're letting other people do the work for you, can you say that you do good work? And it's hard to agree that you're doing work in those scenarios, right? And this also includes your team. Have you vetted your team? You have the right lenders, the right attorneys, the right contractors, the people who are an extension of you, right? Lee brought up a great example of sometimes we get busy and we know that I know that this termite company's out there and because I'm busy, I'm just going to call them and let them do it. And then I end up spending 25% of my income to solve a problem when maybe I didn't need to do that, right? Well, if it's a first time buyer and they might have a bad taste in their mouth, and at the end of the day, they might be a little bit more forgiving and forgetful as time passes because they bought a home to live in for the next 20 years. Investors buy with frequency and they don't forget. And so it's critical that you find a way in your work ethic to provide that extra value and making sure that you're doing what you need to do. Number 3 is serving others. We must hold the needs of our clients above our own needs to make money. Probably one of the most difficult things to do if you don't personally have any money. Been there, done that, folks. And what does that sound like? It sounds like, well, it's only February 7th. My rent's not due till March 1st. I have a little time, right? Or maybe I'm under contract right now and it's supposed to close on February 24th. But then you get the call that they want to extend it to the middle of March. Or you get a client who asks you the question, what do you think I should do? Should I close now or should I close next month? And an example of putting your needs first is just that. You have bills due on March 3rd. So what are you doing to persuade or influence? And is it in their favor? This also includes, these are examples. Maybe you specialize or you're trying to specialize in residential real estate and you meet someone who wants to sell their business. And it sounds great and it sounds like a deal and all those other good things. The question becomes, how can you serve that person? Going back to number 1, how are you going to do a good job if you know nothing about selling a business or selling commercial? If you're not running the numbers, how do you know it's a good deal, right? So serving others is extremely important when it comes to this. And do you have the ability, because we haven't even gotten to integrity yet, and do you have the ability to say, you know what, that's not in my wheelhouse. Let me recommend somebody who specializes in that. And again, I hear this frequently from agents all the time. I'll have some agent that I know has been door knocking a neighborhood to get listings. And next thing I know, they're knocking on my door, asking me about, hey, I've got somebody who wants to list a 12-unit apartment building. And I know deep down inside, that's not in their lane and that's not in their wheelhouse. And if you look at this wheel, right, how does that relate to you and your ability to sleep at night, right? So if you serve others ahead of your need to make money, that's ultimately when you're selling with integrity. So do you scrub properties every day? What does your routine look like? We preach this all the time. If you just spend an hour and a half to 2 hours every day looking at property online and running numbers, are you any better? Right? Back to the 10,000 hours. How are you getting those 10,000 hours? How are you intentionally practicing? Do you preview properties? This drives me absolutely bonkers that we're willing to go do an open house. Lee's got a listing in Long Beach and he asked me to go do the open house. And maybe I'm really good at open houses. And maybe he trusts that my priority is to sell the house I'm sitting first. And if I determine that the buyer doesn't want that house, maybe I can go sell him another house, right? So what this means to me is not only am I helping Lee with his listing, but 4 days before the open house, I went to preview the other actives in the neighborhood. Like there's nothing worse than showing up to a listing appointment and the seller knows more about their neighborhood than you do, right? So what are you doing to get the hours and the practice in? Could you write offers every week? Absolutely. Are you insulting anyone? Maybe. I don't know. It's practice. But the more practice you have, the better chance you have of getting something to stick, right? And then more importantly, do you understand the process? Meaning, if this happens during the course of a negotiation, what would happen next? If I go under contract, what happens next? What could potentially get in the way? Knowing the process means you're doing good work. And then back to the value. Do you feel that you would have any more confidence in value if you did those 4 bullet points that I had just described there and I do good work? Can you validate with confidence that you're doing good work because you're putting in the time, the effort, and the energy to not only do it, but to understand it? And I think the answer is yes, right? What unique options can you offer any potential clients? Right? Number one would be extremely important to that. So let's just, you guys answer this question. How do most agents determine the value of a property today? Come on, it's interactive. Unmute.
I'd just go on Zillow.
You're jumping the gun, right? You're jumping the gun on me, Lee. Most of us use a CMA. And I don't even know if we use the CMA properly. I don't even know how well the CMA training out there actually is. But how do most owners determine the value of property? And Lee hit the nail on the head right there. Zillow. So how often do those two agree? Matter of fact, if you were to say, let's look at Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, how many of those agree on what the price of the value of the property is? Right? So there's always this confliction. So what are some ways that you're going to provide this value so that you can charge the fee or the compensation that you want to charge? And it's today, this is the direction I feel very confidently in. And that is helping property owners in particular understand their options and choices. And that's part B of our mastermind today is going to be one of those options could be a cash offer. So having those options and choices. Have you guys ever heard of the hammer analogy? And basically the hammer analogy says if the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, that means you see everything that looks like a nail. And I feel personally that if you're trying to grow your real estate transactional business, in particular working with sellers, you're trying to get listings, and all 5,000 other agents in your backyard are trying to get listings, and you all have a hammer, how do you differentiate yourself, right? And I think that's an extremely important thing to remember. And then back to what we were just talking about, how do you actually serve others, and how do you do it with integrity? And I just really personally believe at the end of the day, without number one and number two, I don't know that you really are doing number three and number four very well. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that helpful? So again, if you're struggling and you're not knowing where your business is coming from next, if you're having a hard time understanding your product, I'm telling you right now, if you just practice looking at property and running numbers and previewing properties, it just changes your confidence level, and it's going to change the next conversation you have with someone. So the best and quickest example I can give you guys is this, and you might have heard me talk about this before. So let's say right now your current routine is you get up, you put on your underwear, you go start the coffee, maybe you get your kids up and you're getting them ready for school, whatever it is. But let's just say you go through your little normal morning routine and you're on your way into the office and you just stop and decide to get some coffee. And you're standing in line to get coffee, and a couple people behind you that are standing in line, you overhear them talking about buying real estate. So one of two things happens. You either feel confident enough to turn around and introduce yourself, or you just stand in line getting coffee. That's problem number one. Problem number two, really actually, is you turn around to introduce yourself, which is great. And you say, hey, I happen to overhear you talking about buying some real estate. I happen to be a real estate agent. How could I help you? Nothing wrong with that, right? And they say, Brandon, you know what? We're looking for, believe it or not, we're looking for a rental property. We're looking for, something in this area. And maybe you have a really good conversation about, well, what specifically are you looking for? And they tell you, well, we're looking for 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. We're probably going to pay cash. Like, that's great information, right? And then you leave with it and you're excited. And then you forgot to get their name and number. I don't know. Something happens. But that's the reactive model. And what I'm trying to tell you is this. If you had spent the first hour of the morning drinking your coffee and actually looking and running numbers, and then you go to the coffee house, and then you're standing in line and you hear people behind you talking about buying real estate, and you turn around and you say, hey, my name is Brandon. I'm in real estate. What are you looking for? And they tell you what they're looking for, and you just happen to see that property. Do you think you would have a different conversation? And that's the idea of being proactive. That's the idea of saying, I'm not just waiting for the phone to ring. I want to be intentional and purposeful about meeting people who want to buy, sell, and invest in real estate. And when you're doing it and practicing it, guess what you end up with? Integrity. You really do. This is why we created this logo. So we're upping our standards, so up yours, folks. That's my new motto of the year. All right. Any questions? Anybody have any comments on that? Anything you want to share? Was that somewhat helpful for you going into this? Okay. All right. We have a great new partnership. We have a guest with us today. Scott, you can unmute yourself there.
Yes.
Everybody welcome Scott. Give him a little wave, a little thumbs up. Scott and I have been speaking at length for quite a few months. We have created a partnership with Easy Street Offers. Scott, would you mind just kind of introducing yourself, give us a little background of you and where you're living right now and all that good stuff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on the call. And that was an awesome first segment, Brandon. So enjoyed hearing that. So I live in the Atlanta market. I am a licensed real estate agent. So I have been in real estate for about 14 years now. Owned a brokerage, ran a team, mortgage, sold everything. And I have really and truly just kind of fallen in love with teaching agents how to work with companies that can offer cash offers or what I'd call modern options. In 2018, I had a really cool setup with Open Door inside of my brokerage. So they would send me the turndowns. We would go on listing presentations, and it was the most fun listing presentations ever because they had rejected one solution and then we were bringing other options to the table. So not only were we bringing, we can put a sign in the yard and do all the wonderful stuff that we can do, we were also working with individual investors, hedge funds, anything like that that could help the client out.
Hey, Scott, let me, if you don't mind, let me interrupt because you brought something up that I think is really crucial, which was not only was a homeowner wanting to understand their options, they were actually talking to a company that wasn't a traditional real estate agent because there's a high percentage of sellers who don't really want to talk to a real estate agent right now because they feel like they're being sold something, right? And
100%.
and what I love about how you finished that was, so when we teach the CIS class, another element of people we recommend our agents go introduce themselves to are wholesalers, because there are wholesalers who are talking to homeowners that you're not talking to, who never put a deal together either, but you still have a motivated seller. And I love that you said that if it didn't work out with Open Door, you got an opportunity to help the seller still.
Yeah. No, well, like I said, I mean, it was just a whole lot of fun because at the end of the day, I remember when I got my license and did my first deal and was in my first year, I remember trying to be like, how can I let people know I'm in real estate without acting like most real estate agents act? Like that, this was my whole game. And the reason being is that, the public at times, they go to Open Door because they think, oh, this is going to be great. I get to save commission, right? So I don't have to pay compensation. I guess commission is not the word anymore. I don't have to pay compensation. And what they don't realize is that maybe the compensation they're paying on that could be less in percentage, but maybe the offer is 20 to 25% less. Maybe in 2021, they were paying full market value and over for houses at one point. So, I always felt having the options and showing it, but then being the agent and the consultant, I got to deliver everything to the client, and then they could decide what made sense.
And to that point, back to what I was just talking about is, knowing your product, knowing those numbers. Most real estate agents don't understand, even in an Open Door scenario, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but even if a seller or a homeowner decides to go through the Open Door process, their average fees are still like 8.5 or 9%, right? They're still collectively higher than what a traditional real estate agent would even charge them to sell their home.
Yeah. Unless they've got a little marketing spend. Sometimes in some cities they'll do 5%, which makes it look good, but then they just bake the extra 3 into the number. So, it's getting the numbers together. But anyway, in that, I've met Dan, the CEO over at Easy Street Offers, and got to hear what they're doing over there. And I thought it was just a very, very, very interesting platform. So I've been working with them since October on the agent side of things. So Easy Street, it's a two-sided platform. So we've got real estate agents, like I say, on the left side, and then investors on the right side. Easy Street will not work directly with clients. They only work with real estate agents. And so there always has to be a listing agent involved in every Easy Street deal. And so what we do on the two-sided platform is the agents get an account. All the agents get free accounts. And Brandon has set up a really nice white label for the team here, for the group here. And once an agent has their free account, they can put in the property and it goes through the Easy Street Offer underwriting team. And then once they have put their valuations on the property, on the right side is all the investors. And so they're growing investors every single day on the platform. I think right now there's about 4,300 investors that are on the platform. But instead of just saying, hey, you're an investor and here's an address, the investors do a 30-minute onboarding call where they build their buy boxes and they build their strategies on how they want to buy. And so by the time they see a property, it's been underwritten to their standards. And
Right.
then they can decide if they want to make an offer or not make an offer on the property. And
Right.
so the way Easy Street, I always like to tell agents this because it just really helps. The agent who's bringing the deal together is the listing agent. Easy Street represents the investor. And that's how Easy Street is in business, is they represent the investors in the transaction and they become the investor's agent on the buyer side.
Right.
All of the offers that come over do not include, like it's baked into the price. So the person selling the home only has to cover the listing agent's fee that you decide on.
Right. Right. Unless you creatively bake it in either way. Right.
Correct.
But we really want that transparency. And I appreciate that you're sharing that. Right. And if you're looking at the screen, it's as simple as this, right? It's an option. We should all agree that a property is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. But we're kind of trying to reverse engineer this. So if you have your traditional real estate agent hat on and the only tool in your toolbox is a CMA, how frequently are you having a debatable conversation with a property owner about the value of the property, right? And so we should also agree with integrity that for a seller to truly not leave any money on the table, they should probably go to the open market. Everybody here should agree that is an option and typically the best option when it comes to a monetary number for a seller. But not every seller is interested in that, folks, right? So don't overthink this, but having the ability to at least present something to a potential homeowner to help identify what someone else might be willing to pay for that property before maybe even you go to market, which is that's a great option we have too, Scott, right? Is I can talk to Cam and say, hey, Cam, listen, before we even hit the market, if you want to just see what happens, we can put this property through the system and we can come up with some offers and you and your husband can chew on it. And if it doesn't feel right, doesn't sound right, we can still go to the open market. That's the beauty of this, right, Scott?
Yep. No, 100%, 100%. I mean,
Okay.
I always say, obviously as an agent and listing agent, and I was a listing agent for years and years, I was always thinking net, net, net. And then I started realizing something, that speed and certainty have a value. And I have no idea what that value is. I tell people all the time, if speed, convenience, and all that stuff didn't matter, we wouldn't have a first class on airplanes. The people sitting in first class pay a lot more than people sitting in coach. And there are people that value that for sure. And so depending on the situation, depending on what's going on in their life, speed and convenience can be a huge motivator. And so I always like to show that at the beginning. Say, here's your speed and convenience offers right here. You don't have to deal with the showings, but we can deal with the showings together if that's how you want to go.
Right. Yep. Love it. Absolutely. So we can pretty much do single family homes. We can do up to 4 units. We talked a little bit earlier, but more importantly, it doesn't matter if it's a rehab resale. It doesn't matter if it's a buy and hold or a combination of both, right?
Correct.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so I think that's amazing. So how does it work? I'm just going to show you right now. If you guys want to scan this real quick, also, obviously, this is being recorded. We'll send it back out as well. This is the Certified Investor Agent Specialist white label that you'll have access to. Um, sometimes it's also nice to get preferential treatment. It's also nice, for us to be able to take care of you and from a customer service perspective, right? It's a growing business. The investors pretty much account for 35% of the real estate transactional business in this country. So if you're not getting your fair share, make sure that you are. What will happen is you will, and again, this is a free account, you will get a link where you will have your own dashboard. And what's cool about the dashboard is you're going to basically put in your normal information, what brokerage you're at, right? You can add a profile picture, you can add your brand logo, which is awesome because at the end of the day, another benefit you have is you can also invite investors into the network that might not already be part of the network. And you can also invite other agents to be part of the network as well. And Scott, would you mind explaining how that works?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So once you get this set up, you're going to have your referral profile. And so you'll see there's a buyer one, there's going to be an agent one. The buyer one to me is my favorite from the agent side, just to be honest with you, because if I'm out here and I'm working with investors, and maybe I've got an investor who wants to work with me in Atlanta, but they're willing to buy in multiple states. Well, obviously for me, I can get them some stuff maybe here in the Atlanta market and service them here. But if they want to buy in Memphis or California or other markets, I don't really have that much exposure to that. So what I can do is I can actually get them my referral link. They will go in and sign up through the onboarding process. And because I referred that investor, it gets tagged under me. So I'll be able to go into my referrals and see the names of everybody. And anything that they buy at any point in any state at any time, I will get a 25% referral fee from Easy Street Offers of the 3% they take.
Yep. That's awesome. And the same with agents.
Yep.
All right. So Lee, like this would be for you and your team, get signed up and then put them underneath you as well. And you get a little revenue share kind of, right? So that would be an example. So what's cool about the dashboard is now you can track your referrals and more importantly, you can track your requests for offers. And I can tell you firsthand, we have been using this pretty consistently the past few months. We've already put 2 transactions together. All of the properties were off market. We're currently working on an on market one that we have a listing, believe it or not, that's been stagnant. So we're working with the seller on some cash offers on that. And, I just want to, give a shout out to the Easy Street team there. Scott hasn't really touched on this yet, and maybe he can, but what's great about this is it's not an automated valuation model. Like you're not putting in an address and it spits out an offer right away. What's really cool is based on the information that you're entering in about the property, and it starts with a property search. What's really cool is it's taking the data that you've put in and it's automatically through the network and the system determining how many different investors it fits what they call their buy box. Right, Scott?
Yep. Yeah. So as soon as you get done entering all the information, the very last page is you might see 38 investors with 46 different buy boxes, right? And the reason you're seeing is some investors have multiple buy boxes, right? So some might do fix and flip plus buy hold. So you're going to see that. And then immediately when it comes over to the buyer team, the buyer team takes a look at it, they underwrite it, but then they also cross-reference it right back too. So they can look on their dashboard and say, here's the 46 investors, and here's exactly what these investors offer should look like based on the value and based on what they want to make. Now they can tweak it And you know, investors, if you tell an investor to offer
Yep.
250, they're going to offer 210. So they can make their adjustments, but then once the offer comes over, as you get it and you present it, you can counter it. And I always tell people, counter it. And you can counter that offer back. And then they're going to take it back to the investor. And the investor's like, no, I'm sticking to this price, or let's meet in the middle. Or maybe they say, no, I'm sticking to that price. They'll take it back to other investors on the network at the new price and see if anybody will take it down.
Yeah. So you have a human being that's helping you. You
Yep.
have the opportunity to continue to negotiate. You're getting you and the seller are getting a great understanding of what the property is worth to an investor. And like Scott said, it depends on the investor type and a few other things, but nonetheless, you have a number, right? And again, for me, like, you know, if you've taken my negotiating class as an example, I'm really big on creating anchor points, right? If we go back to, again, the 4 agreements, and we're doing this with integrity, think about the conversation you're having with a homeowner. You're not just talking what ifs. You're actually coming back with some legitimate numbers, offers from real people, and it's not you making things up, right? Which I think is huge.
Well, and I want to hit on this spot right here. It does take 24 to 48 hours for you to get an offer. And being that I've been in this space for 7 years now, the one thing I've learned is the faster the offer, the more automated it is, and the more it's going to change.
Right.
So the whole goal behind this is a solid offer. So there is a 24 to 48 hour lag time that you have to account for.
So let's talk real quick before we get into the markets. One of the reasons Easy Street offers is having a conversation with Brandon and certified investor agent specialist is because one of the challenges that Easy Street offers is having with agents is the agents are not very good at putting critical information about the property in the system. In other words, they're putting in crap information. It's bogging the system down. It's creating, you know, not really good experience for both the team at Easy Street and the agent or the homeowner. And one of the benefits you guys have is I'm encouraging them to work with CIAS agents more because you're trained on how to properly gather the right information to provide to an investor so that they can make a realistic decision. And here's what it looks like. I'm going to give you this example. If you guys were interested in buying an investment property and you had $500,000 burning a hole in your pocket, and I called you up and said, hey, I've got a property that's probably worth 650. They'll take 500 cash now. Would you guys be okay with that? Would you just give me your money? Anyone? Would you guys give me your money right now? No, you wouldn't, right? Because you're missing information. So even, and Scott will share with you, sometimes an agent who puts a property in the cash offer system, they end up getting an offer that they don't like or the seller doesn't like. And it's just because if that's all the information I have as an investor, I'm only going to give you 60 cents on the dollar because I don't really know what it is that I'm buying. And that goes back to the other thing Scott's talking about is they need time and they're trying to do it within 48 hours to get you something that's legit and it's not just throwing darts, right? Which I think is great.
Yep. And also too, I mean, with y'all's training in this, you know, being a part of this group, we also want to trust agents with giving us more data. For example, if we have a rehab budget on the house of $72,000 and you come back and say, no, we've checked this, it's going to be $40,000. Like, we're going to trust the agents that understand what they're doing versus an agent just driving down a neighborhood, giving us addresses with no information.
Right.
No photos, nothing.
Right. So there's two things that we haven't asked for you on the call and for those of you who are ultimately watching this recording, and that is, if you're looking at the screen, these are the big metropolitan areas that currently a majority of the investors are working those markets right now. And if you're in those areas and you're signing up, we're going to have a one-on-one about how to get you kickstarted in offering this and leveraging this for lead generation, prospecting, and marketing. If you're in an area right now where you don't necessarily see that we have coverage, we still want to have that conversation with you, but we want to work with you on growing that in your backyard. We want you to be kind of the first person to kind of grow that neighborhood. Anything you want to add to that, Scott?
No, I mean, I think it's perfect. I think there's instant opportunity for the areas that we're in. I think there's massive opportunities for the areas we're not in.
Right.
Because you get to build out the investor network. You can put more people into there. They can pretty easily, we can open up states and get things rolling. It just comes down to, do we have agents submitting properties and do we have investors making offers?
Right.
So you can imagine the balancing act that has to happen.
Right. So what it doesn't do for you is it's not going to bring sellers directly to you. It doesn't mean, though, if Scott's group knows and trusts you, it doesn't mean that they don't already have an investor in the network who's looking for the right agent to do some business with. It doesn't mean that we can't connect with each other. What we're trying to say is the Easy Street system just doesn't automatically bring sellers to you. We talked a little bit about it doesn't auto-generate an offer. It's because there's a team of human beings who have integrity that are double checking what it is you're submitting in the system before they even approach any of their investors. Right. So that's a big part of it. And obviously it's not going to do your marketing and prospecting. So right out of the gate, you're going to have access to a ton of resources that talk about instant cash offers to help you at least get started with some marketing, while we at CIAS are actually working with some more robust marketing campaigns around this. So you're going to have access to that probably within the next 60 to 90 days, but there's something at least that you can get started with, which is pretty cool. And again, this is all free. It's not costing you anything right now. So we're trying to make it as, easy of a button to push as possible, but back to what we talked about earlier, you got to understand it. Right. And so that's where, the masterminds, that's where I'm going to come into play. I'm willing to work with you one-on-one to help you get this started, help you answer, maybe specific geographic questions or whatever. And with that, what I'd like to do is just kind of open it up for some Q&A with our guest here. Hopefully you guys see some value in this opportunity, but let's take advantage of having Scott on our call and let's ask some questions. Cam?
I have one.
Can I ask you something about the contingencies from the from your investors? What type of contingencies they have in the offer if they have to have a better deal?
Yeah. So, I mean, everything's negotiable with them, but typically there's going to be some sort of due diligence or inspection period that's built into there because, again, I mean, they're underwriting the file through photos and videos and stuff like that. So they're going to want to get time to get out there and get an inspection done on the property. But a lot of times the offers will come over where the investor might say, we close on this day, but they can stay in the home for 4 days, or we're offering a sale leaseback if they need to stay there for a month or two. So, I mean, there's flexibility there, but it's all negotiable.
Yeah. And one of Paul, one of the other things we did on the last two deals we did was those particular investors also did the trash out.
Is it subject to financing or appraisals?
No.
So it's all cash offer.
Yeah, it's an all cash. I mean, some of the investors will use hard money, but I mean, it's definitely, I mean, it's an all cash offer, and the only, it's only the inspection period that they put in there.
Paul, to your original question, the offers aren't going to be subject to appraisal or financing.
Correct. Yes.
So title report, inspection, and pretty much I can't think of anything else. Inspection, title report.
Yeah. The only other thing, like in LA, right, we have the 9A report, the city report. So, there are certain municipalities that in addition to the inspections, for your file, because we're brokerages, we still need disclosures. We still need broker file paperwork to get paid. Yeah. Cam, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to do with 23 units, single family unit. And this might be a really good option because we could take a look and say, okay, do we want to renovate it ourselves or just put it up and see who wants to buy it? And then we don't have to do that, or they can pay us to do it because we're in the city to do it on their behalf, right?
Wait. So the question, Sir Scott, would be, what if it was a portfolio of properties?
Yeah, portfolios are great. Typically with a portfolio, what we do is, I mean, you can enter each one individually, but it can get kind of time consuming. So on a portfolio, typically what we'll do is just have you kind of email it over to me, and then I get it to our team that handles the portfolios. Like we just did a new construction portfolio in Memphis on some Section 8 stuff that came over to us, and it was like 10 homes that one investor took down.
Okay, well, in this case, it would be 6 duplexes
Okay.
that we would be looking to do, and all of them would be already rented except for one unit out of the 12 doors. So,
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
I think I would learn. I learned by doing. So maybe I just downloaded my app. Thank you, Brandon.
you're welcome.
So I'll enter the information, I'll go through the process and see if I can learn how to do it. Because before I go out and start doing it to other people, let me test it on myself to see how it goes.
You can test it on one of your properties for sure, but if you want to package something, I would absolutely let me know, and I'll connect you with Scott so you can just send him all of the properties at the same time, so you're not having to put them each through the system, so that they understand it's a package deal.
Yeah, well, to your end yesterday when we were talking about yesterday, I am looking to do like 3, if not like a version of splitting up the 23, the package of 23, just so that I have some liquidity. So,
well, you know what else? You know what else you
Hmm.
just made me realize, Cam? And this is another thought, Scott. Cam's an investor, so she also needs to build her own buy box in Easy Street. So how would that?
I was just about to say, so when you sign up and you get an account, I mean, initially you're going to end up getting an agent account. Basically, and Brandon, you and I can kind of figure out the mechanics of it, but any agent can like I got a lot of agents that have an agent account and an investor account. So you can get an investor account as well too. And then basically when you sign up with the investor account on your agent account, then you do the onboarding. And so, yeah, we've got a lot of agents that have both.
I'll send you the link, Cam.
Okay, not quite. I'm a little I'm drowning in work, but hopefully I'll get to it.
Okay, cool.
And this is Lisa Burke. I'm not sure what my name is popping up as, but
No, you have the right name, Lisa. Hi.
sometimes my kids go on and they change the name. I don't know what they're doing. But hi, how are you?
Good, how
So
are you?
obviously I'm good. Obviously this works if the investor wants to do a 1031 exchange, right? That still
Correct.
works through the system somehow. Okay.
Yep.
It's not prejudice to that. I
That's
know.
Not at all.
Sometimes when I sneak on other Zooms, I use Lee Williams' name, Lisa. It's okay.
Okay. Maybe I'll start using yours and then I'll help.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I was gonna use his. Okay, we'll both be Brandon.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Good idea.
Perfect. What do you think, Lee? Is this something you guys would be interested in? Got that mute button, man.
Can I ask a quick question? So I was at a listing appointment and, while I was on the listing appointment going through pricing, the seller pulled up Zillow and he was like, look, I can get a cash offer. Maybe I won't use you. And I was like, feel free to jump on that and circle back and let's talk about it depending on, what the offer is. And if you're happy with it. They obviously weren't, but how does it, just out of my curiosity, how does this process compare to my seller just clicking on that button on Zillow?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yep, Scott, go for it.
Yeah, I can dive all over it. So that's Open Door that made the offer on behalf of Zillow. So although they hate each other, they've partnered on that button. And basically, sometimes the investors are making offers that are going to be better than what Open Door is doing across the board. Like I always hate talking in general numbers with this, and that's the one thing I always will tell agents, until you get the real number, we're guessing, right? Like Open Door might be paying 80 cents on the dollar in Atlanta, but in another market, they might be paying 60 cents on the dollar. In one zip code, they might be paying 70 cents on the dollar, but another one 82 cents on the dollar. And so those iBuyers and instants and all of that stuff are just all over the board. And so it really just depends.
So there's a couple things I would add to that, Lisa, which is one, I would ask the seller, based on what Scott just offered, I would ask the seller, how would you feel if you were asking Zillow for a cash offer, but they were using another company? Like do you lose any trust there? Right. That's part of it. And the second part is, these companies are using what's called an automated valuation model.
Mhm.
So would you rather actually get a cash offer from a human being or a machine?
Yep.
So that's how I would approach that. Does that make sense, Lisa?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they ultimately didn't take that offer, and I did get the listing, and I just sold it before it hit the market. So that was all good. But I'm just wondering going forward how I position this opportunity with you guys to compete with that stupid Zillow button.
Well, so Lisa, what market are you in?
I'm in Brandon's market, kind of.
Okay. So y'all got so Open Door. Like, I mean, the one thing I tell agents every single day, and even working at Easy Street, we say this because at the end of the day, we want to be a solution if we're the right solution. Kind of going back to the points Brandon was talking about earlier. I think as an agent, going to Open Door or OfferPad or whoever before a listing presentation makes so much sense. Number one, I'm going to get this AVM model offer from Open Door. Number two, nobody else can go to Open Door for the next 30 days because I'm the agent that put the information in. Kind of nice. Number three, if they tell me somebody has already asked for an offer on that property, then I pretty much already know going into it that the client has gone to Open Door on their own and taken a look at it. And then I like to take the Open Door offer, go to Easy Street, let the investor offers come in. If the investor offers are below the Open Door offer, counter them above the Open Door offer and see if they'll play ball. So now you're presenting a real live human offer that's actually better than the AI.
Oh, okay. So as an agent, I can go in and do the Open Door on my own just to get an offer. And then what happens if the owner wants to do it? They can do it again, or no? I
think they totally let the client do it. They're not going to let another agent do it. So basically, if you go in there and you just put in, I mean, I do demos all the time where I'll put in an address down the street from me with Open Door and they'll spit me out a number. So I have an agent account with them. They spit out a number. They're going to give you a range. They're going to say it's somewhere between 8 and 840. And so we're sitting at 820. And that's our starting number. It's a preliminary offer. And then there's steps that they have you walk through if the person's still standing at 820.
Oh, that's good. All right. And then you can put the Open Door offer in Easy Street, and then we can go from there and see if we can.
You can.
Yeah.
Your job is to do the best you can with the seller, right? And
yeah.
And unfortunately, the traditional way, Lisa, even if they're really loyal to us and they want to give us the listing, we're still putting a property on the market with an unknown what somebody's going to offer, right? We're just guessing. And that's what's cool about you leveraging the platform and the stuff that Scott's talking about as additional options for us with homeowners. And again, just those conversations helps us differentiate ourselves from the other agents who are just saying, hey, RPR said your house is worth $65 million, whatever, right? When we know that's probably not the reality. So that's what's cool about it.
Right. Okay, great.
Yeah. All right.
Yep. And cash offers Google's nicely, but I love modern options. It just doesn't Google as well.
Yeah. Totally agree with that for sure.
Wait, what's that? I'm sorry. What's modern option?
That's just what I consider what we do. Like,
Oh, okay.
we're bringing
yeah.
you modern options. We're bringing you the best of the cash offers. We're bringing you the best of the iBuyers. We're bringing you the best alternative modern options outside of putting a sign in your yard and going
Right.
traditional.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Right. Yep. And real estate's still situational. You know, if you're doing a good job having a conversation with a homeowner and understand the situation, those should be the options and choices that you should be discussing. I just think our industry doesn't do a very good job of training agents around this. So, all right, Lee, you're back.
And we also, well, and I'll say one last thing, because tomorrow is a new day and real estate is really dynamic. I will be on Facebook chat groups and agents will say, and I'm not pushing for Open Door. Don't think I work for them. Don't think I'm saying like that's the right company. But I'll see people go, oh, 2 weeks ago, Open Door did this. So tomorrow, Open Door is going to do the same thing. Don't go tell future lies to clients based on bad data that you heard.
Okay.
Brandon, did you guys talk about takeouts?
No, go ahead.
In terms of like when the investor buys the property, who ends up listing it afterwards if they're going to?
So that what's cool about that, and Scott, you correct me if I'm wrong. So far, my experience, Lee, has been, you know, we end up at some point having some direct conversation with the investor, like maybe we're meeting them at the property to let them in to do their inspections or whatever. And it's just always around the conversation. Ironically, the two that Tammy and I just did, those particular buyers also have their own real estate brokerage. So we didn't get that opportunity, but they offered the opportunity to do the open houses.
Okay, good.
Yep.
And the more we know up front, the better. So yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. What do you think about it though, Lee?
I think it's solid. I like the idea. Even if we don't go that route, having that, I love the pro tip, Scott. That was amazing in terms of going Open Door first, register as the agent, and then being able to use that in your conversation with your sellers.
Yep.
Yeah, very much. We had, right. So Lee, you know, our team scrubs every day, right? So what's interesting is the last 12 Open Door properties that we see on the market, the last 12 that we've looked at, we've talked to those listing agents and they hate trying to sell it because they're already at a loss. Open Door's riding their butt. It's like not even a good listing partnership, which is unfortunate too. Yeah. Oh,
good point.
Yep. All right. That was awesome, Scott, man. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you making the time to be on here. You know, in addition to our training, we're also, you know, as you know, we're trying to help our agents grow their business and not just build wealth, but, you know, make some money, right? Because that's part of the game. Again, I still think a lot of people don't realize how many off-market transactions are happening. So it's good to give them another tool to, you just never know. Somebody in whatever their situation might feel, hey, this is the direction I want to go. It's like you said earlier, speed and convenience, right?
Absolutely.
So,
hey, Brandon, quick question, Bob.
Yeah.
Hi. If there's an off-market property, but it's with another agent, is that going to be treated as like a referral, or how does that work?
We will treat it as a referral for sure. Needs to be notated because here's why. When you go in, and again, you got special privileges inside of the CIS white label. I will tell you that. Brandon did a good job. Majority of the time, if somebody goes in and they pull an on-market property that has another listing agent on it, we're going to reject it because it's not the same person. If you put into the notes, you know, obviously we're going to know you're tied to this anyway. But when you put into the notes that you're working for the referral side, then Easy Street will do a referral with you on their side of the compensation, not the listing side.
So good communication, Bob, you know, make sure you're noting those things, so that you can make sure you're protected.
Got it. Thank you.
And y'all, for sale by owners, are really nice targets. I'm getting ahead of myself, Brandon. You're going to be
No.
doing all that, but
No, I love it. I mean, you're right. And again, that just goes back, Scott, to, and some of the agents that are on this call that are also in leadership positions know that we have agents out there who are really trying to find their next deal. And the traditional space right now is so red ocean. It's the same sharks fighting over the same fish. And we're trying to help provide some opportunity with understanding how this works. Right.
yep.
Yeah. Love it. Very cool. Anybody have any other questions, comments? All right. Everybody give a thumbs up and a thank you to Scott and Easy Street for putting this together for us. And then for those of you that have signed up and stuff, I will be reaching out to you specifically to make sure that everything is going smooth for you. We'll go from there. So look for my emails and we'll get connected. So everybody yeah, go ahead, Khadijah. Go ahead.
Oh, it's Lisa. So real quick, to sign up, I just click that QR code and I sign up, right?
That is correct.
Okay, great.
Do I need to share it again? Or do you guys have it?
I took a picture of it, so I should be okay. But I didn't go to the, maybe, no, I should have it. If not, I'll email you if I have a problem. All right.
Yeah, and I'll send out a follow-up email with this recording as well.